So in 2014 and 2015, we commissioned a survey in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda. At the time we were about to go into Burundi, Burundi went belly up. So as I said, we are an East African institute. We have a focus in these 5 countries. But as the political horizon of the polity of East Africa expands, we shall find ourselves in places like South Sudan, which is going to be the next member state of the East African community. And just to paraphrase Edmund Burke, who's a political theorist and philosopher, Irish guy, lived in the 18th century. If we understand the values and attitudes, concerns and aspirations of young people, we can shape what the future could look like. That is our conviction. That if we understand what the young people are thinking today and begin to build that systematically in the way that our government thinks and plans, and in the way that we as parents try to work with young people to meet those aspirations, we can get a firm handle on the future. I don't believe in this saying of the future belonging to some misty horizon. The future is in the active making now. We are in the active employment of constructing a future. And the things that we do and don't do will have huge consequences going forward.
When Dr. Awiti finally called me and said, let's have this discussion, I was very excited for 2 reasons. One, we make policy, and not just in this country, but I think across the continent. We make policy, we make decisions, including availing funds for young people. But nobody has ever really asked the young people what they want, what aspirations they have, what are their dreams, what do they need to get there. And with a population that's 80% made up of young people, it's beyond reason to me why nobody ever thought to ask the youth what they want.
Living young, wild and free car VMC. Respect to all parties, especially MR Siniwazi, Punchlines and Albufeska Omar Manwazi. Wana resign speedy sababu ya ugavana. And still wameshindwa ku maintain speed governor. Sleeping sickness kwa bunge nikawa wameaffectiwa na Ghana. African Cup is there ni kati ya Kenya na Ghana. EPA na support noisy neighbor, not the Ghana. Kempa wako na lipwa monthly pilo na complain yako lipa ana. Jaribu kunidisi chomeke kwa jeana. Ako academic assembly jumefail function na grana. Aligeta rapa hatari na flow kwa river Tana. Tunatoa vitu modern sona muunga Tana. Wanalia msoto na oil lipo chungana.
One of the reasons why IDRC decided to fund the East Africa Dialogue series was we believe very much that promoting dialogue, promoting understanding through science, through research, through the provision of data, which informs us about really important questions. That process of informed dialogue is a way to support and strengthen society, social processes, the processes by which society recreates itself, becomes more resilient, and addresses the problems that really confront the majority of its populace.
I commend Alex and his team for focusing this first East African dialogue on the question of youth. The figures Alex provided with regard to the demographic weight of youth in this part of the world speak for themselves, but it's not just an African issue. Even in Canada, issues of youth are so important that our new Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has retained the youth portfolio for himself. So our Prime Minister is also the Minister for Youth in Canada, and that speaks volumes to the importance that we attach as Canadians to this issue. It really is incumbent on government, it's incumbent on the partners of government to take action forward, responding to the opportunities and challenges that the research speaks to.
The future. The future. Because I want to make it clear before you launch, I think the youth are extremely clever. The youth see what we do. So let's not blame them. We are the ones who are corrupt. And I can tell you an example. 2012, our son was in Strathmore. They went to Mombasa with a son of another very high government officer. He had retired, and there were 12 of them. That son told the other boys, I know my father is a thief. Actually, they were staying in the father's house in Mombasa. And they say, my father is a thief. I've worked with him for many years, and I think he's one. So this is what Alex and all the others are doing. There are a lot of studies, by the way, with the World Bank, everybody. We want to get what key things are we getting? What information are we getting here? But notice that that must drive the better policies. This is where I come in. This is where the government comes in. This is where the private sector, this is where everybody comes in. It's not just to government. This is where the fourth estate comes in, pushing it.
How are the youth being treated today?
Okay, right now all eyes are on the youths. Anything they do, everyone is looking at the youths. But with the Kenyan mentality of people, they only like focusing on the negative part of whatever someone is doing, and leaving aside the better thing that the youths are doing.
Yes, now we've said that, a majority of the youth look up to their religious leaders. Do you believe, as a young person, that you get the sort of values you require from your religious leader, be that the mosque, even the young people you talk to, be that the mosque, the church, the Hindu temples, or wherever? Do you think there are enough good examples?
Advice is good, but not all advice is good.
Explain.
Because if I'm seated here with you, you telling me what I'm supposed to do. It's upon me to choose on whatever you've told me, to filter and know what is right for me and what's not right for me.
Okay. Do you believe you have to then filter what your religious leaders are telling you, the advice they're giving you?
Of course.
So you want to filter that?
We have to
Why?
filter because as much as they are our religious leaders, yes, but they're humans.
That rings true with you, doesn't it, Sheikh? In terms of, especially even when you're talking about radicalization and knowing, who's rogue and who's not, and even with the bad examples we see, for example, within the Christian church, of certain pastors taking advantage of people.
Yes, it does. Because if you take the example of the late Abu Drogo, he had a much more impact than what most of us sheikhs have today. So we psychologically are trying to understand what is it that he was using, because most of what he was saying were lies. We found out. But he was very attractive to the youth. Even today, if you speak against him, you might get a beating. Yes, when our Mombasa mosques were closed, that is the time when CIPK came to Nairobi, and I was pushed to the forefront just because I was a youngster. Because they were demanding, it's time for you elders to go. And I think this is one of the cultures that should change. Every elder should groom a youngster to take over.
Look at your fingers. They're different. And even children born of the family, with the same mother and the same father, are all different talents. And when you come to religion and to the faith, yes, I want to acknowledge, and has been seen, that there are some religious leaders who have used the podium for their own gain. And you see, recently what is happening, regulation of registration of religious institutions, societies, because some have gone overboard in a manner that, what do they really want? They want to get quick riches, as I've said, where some preach a prosperity. We draw our doctrines from the commands of God. And what is good for a Christian is the same that good for a Muslim. And therefore, religionizing means that faith has to be gained from the family. The family upbringing also impact in faith.
My data, the ones that I collected, showed that at the coast of Kenya, that it's actually not being over religious, like you said, that leads to extremism. Most of the people that I talk to in interviews and focus group discussions I mean, the data that I have revealed that most of them had very minimal knowledge of religion. So, like, they would tell you something like, we're supposed to fight jihad. So, probe them further and ask them what is jihad. They don't even understand what jihad is. So, what are you guys doing to make sure that people understand the religion in practice, to respect the values that, we've been talking about here since morning?
We are trying to understand where we went wrong. And we are trying especially to engage our other brothers also under Interreligious Council to understand that although our beliefs might be different, but our morals are the same. Can't we live and confine our beliefs to the places of worship, come together and make sure that we address the problem the way it is?
Now, thinking that we want to be one unit, would it be a consideration to religious leaders and religious groups to think of us, for instance, teaching religious education in terms of the values that run across the religions? Because when you look at what the religions stand for, it's exactly the same thing.
Great.
Thank you, madam. Yes, it is time we appreciated each other. It's time we move from intolerance to cooperation. Because when we were in school, I was taught CRE, but I was never converted to Christian. Okay, I learned the Bible by heart. So, in other words, there are some few elements that we have to get rid of. And we have to make sure that when we come together, let us instill values. The beliefs, leave them at church and at the mosques. Let us just instill values that will bring up one Kenya.
We need to look at values beyond churches and mosques and ask ourselves, what is the national value, Kenya's value, Africa's value? So that drives the agenda. And then religion can support what we'd like to achieve as a country.
My question is to Dennis. How do we expect to instill these values in the youth? What do you need from us for us to instill those values? They don't change. Respect, all those things. How do we instill those values?
People don't really know that there is a connection between the elders and we as youths, because the elders guide us through what we are supposed to do the right way, and if by any chance they mislead us, that means that we definitely have to go astray because we do follow footsteps.
Do these findings surprise you amongst the youth? I know we focus a lot on establishment, institutions, government. But now you take a look at youth and they're saying, I'm willing to make money any which way as long as I don't get caught. And I imagine, I don't know if that was a follow-up question, but that, if I get caught, I can try and bribe my way out of it. I'm imagining.
Actually, the results don't surprise me at all. For 50 years, that has been the case in this country. That those who are corrupt, and these days I don't use the word corruption because I find it doesn't resonate that much at the grassroots. Those who are engaged in theft, thieves, those who engage in theft have prospered in this society for 50 years. So I don't think I'm going to hammer the youth too hard, because they've seen their fathers do it. We had an example given to us this morning by one of the speakers, where two young people speaking, and one is saying, my father is a thief, and feels quite calm about it. We've lost our sense of social sanction with regard to theft. And amongst our African communities, all our different communities, crimes against property in particular, if one stole from the commons, the punishments were usually more severe than those that were meted out for crimes against person. You could break somebody's leg, but don't steal their cow. And we've lost that.
Where is your own responsibility, and how are we dealing with that among youth? That the youth have to stop, at this point, thinking collectively. Because what we've done, the same way we do in the classical development aid, is that not only do we call Africa a country, which is one of my biggest myths, but that we call us poor, which we have to redefine. We also have to stop talking about the youth, because who are the youth? They're individuals. And the minute you talk about them as youth, you remove the individual responsibility from each individual who is a youth. And that is the problem here. And this is not covered, not for lack of. I think it just never crossed people's minds that actually ask the young person, what is their responsibility? We work with 4 to 25-year-olds, and every single one of these kids are responsible for what happens to them. Our biggest slogan is, you are your future.
Now, yeah, it's true that the youth have that sense of entitlement. Are they right to have that sense of entitlement? No. The thing is that, yes, you are a leader, not just for, we don't want you to lead tomorrow, but are you leading yourself first? Because nobody will let you lead anything if you cannot lead yourself first. As it has been said before, it starts with personal responsibility. Yeah? And there's a lot of opportunities out here, a lot of them. There's a lot of resources. There's a lot of people who are investing in youth. I mean, it's represented right here. And there's a lot of people who want to hear you. But if you have nothing to say, if you're not bringing solutions, if we are always complaining, you know, if we have nothing to back up anything, then nobody will take us seriously.
The violence that took place in the after the elections of 2007 was when going around the country, as I did for 1.5 years, talking to young people. It was one of the most hugely empowering moments in their lives. That moment when they were able to express themselves in this uncontrolled, violent way. And the challenge has been, okay, how do we channel this energy, this anger, this angst that we see into bringing a positive change within people's lives, because that energy is there.
So what we do by giving young people a powerful voice is teaching them to say no. First, to have informed information so that they can say no. Learn to say no with respect. Learn to say no. Because a lot of the stuff that happens is not good for you. And that's where we hang on to the not good for you. Because we know what's good for us. And that's the thing. And that's why the frustration comes. So out of schizophrenia comes madness, because the situation is mad. And then we get really mad. And then you find those old rural women who say, unless you give me my kanga and my sugar nut, I'm not voting for you. Because I'm mad. Because my situation is bad. Because socially I'm deprived. So corruption, all of what is coming from a situation of people feeling they are being shortchanged. There's no other word for it. Because they know it. Everybody knows what is a life that is worth living. And they're not getting it. And that's what we try and sensitize the young people, children, the kids, the little ones, that they too must play a part. And they are also responsible.
A couple of very, very dynamic friends in Western End. And one of them, she started a school for girls, a value-based school, no rules, no prefects, no bells for time, timeliness, honesty, cleanliness, so basic values and the girls would sit, and they still do, every Saturday morning and discuss amongst themselves, what does each value mean to us and how are we going to bring it to life in our own lives? The most interesting thing is not the fact that the school has done extraordinarily well in terms of academic performance. It's just been stratospheric. However, the parents are very keen to say this is not the most important thing. The key thing is that my daughter now says please. My daughter says thank you. My daughter says sorry. They're not fighting with a brother and a sister. They've become more honest, and that's what the parents are emphasizing. And I think that's where those are the answers for Kenya's problems, in my opinion.
People look at young people as problem. If about 20 of them walk in now, most of you would be a bit uncomfortable because you'll be seeing violence. We don't see young people as contributors, people who also need to participate in decision making.
One of the things that we really need to do as a society and as a country is to stop glorifying darkness, and start celebrating positive examples, start talking about light. Because I think we are so obsessed and overwhelmed by talking about the bad things that are happening other than talking about the good things that are happening.
This has been an exciting, exhilarating experience in the sense that, many universities, many organizations that do this kind of thing would give you a thick book, glossy, lots of tables and graphs. But I think we've got to be mindful that we're targeting and doing this on behalf of youth and organizations that do things on behalf of youth. This is about action. And these action-oriented kinds of organizations don't have time to look at this glossy stuff. They would like, at least in many ways without us patronizing that whole process, to give them access to information which they can use whichever way they choose, so that they become agents and drivers of how they consume that information. So that's why we've departed away from this thick, glossy, hand-me publication to doing a data portal. And over the next couple of days, what we're going to do with our tech people and Code for Africa and Aga Khan University is to make sure that this data is absolutely usable. There's a commitment from Aga Khan University and our donors to make sure that this data is in the hands of the people who want to use it and for free.